but it's not impossible. People are asked all the time in high-profile cases, have you ever heard of such and such? And they answer. And the real question is, can they still be fair and impartial? And so the next subsequent round of questions are to do that. Now, the judge has already knocked off a number of people from this jury veneer, the jury pool. And that's because they had too many strong biases, either for Mr. Trump or against Mr. Trump. It was a process that benefited him just as much as it benefited the prosecution. How long this will take, that is an open question. I would certainly think it'll take the rest of this week and perhaps next week. I do not anticipate jury selection will go beyond that.
Robert, it's worth a dramatic reading some of the stuff, the stories that we're hearing from inside the courtroom. We have a team inside the courtroom transmitting that to us. God knows we wish there were cameras there, but it doesn't work that way. As I look through some of these, a woman being interviewed just said, "I think no one is above the law," and then answered the next question saying, "I think he's being treated fairly," which prompted Donald Trump to scowl and shoot the woman a look. She has just been excused. Another, a man who still has a chance to be on the panel, despite the fact that he followed the president on Twitter, says no one is above the law, but he drew smiles and a nod from Donald Trump when he said that he read 3 of the former president's books. He named them: Art of the Deal, How to Get Rich, and Think Like a Champion. He also said he'd been robbed at knife point and that his wife had been mugged. These people are making direct eye contact with the former president while they're being interviewed. Do you actually believe that there will be a fair jury when this is done?
You know, the answer to that question is yes, as fair as juries are. The jury system is not a perfect system. It's just better than any other system you can think of. Yeah, there's going to be problems here. If I was the prosecutor on that last juror that you mentioned, if the judge did not strike that juror for cause, I would preemptively strike that juror because he's just too much identifying with the defendant, as you would any other criminal case where a juror is expressing too much affinity for the defendant. If you have a trial of a drug dealer, you don't generally want drug dealers to be on the jury. And so that's kind of a broad parameter. It's challenging. High-profile cases are challenging. Any high-profile case is challenging because, unlike most criminal cases, there's obviously pretrial publicity here, and you have people with preconceived notions and opinions about the defendant, either for or against him, and you've got to filter through that. That's what jury selection process has done. But he will get a fair, the jury that he deserves under the Constitution, and I do not hold with this argument that, oh, he can't get a fair jury in New York. Well, you know, if this jury acquits him, he's going to say it's a fair jury. So he's getting the jury that he deserves under the Constitution, and people struggle with goodwill to select a good, balanced jury. And hopefully the jurors, the potential jurors, are being honest with their responses, and they will judge his case fairly.
Well, Robert, as you raise one of the arguments that Donald Trump is making, that we've heard him say repeatedly in and out of the courthouse and in other instances as well, this idea that he won't get a fair jury in Manhattan, again, that it's political persecution, as we have heard him say many times. We also did hear from him going into court today about kind of the substance of this case, reminding all of our listeners and viewers he's charged with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. Essentially, the allegation that Alvin Bragg has made as a prosecutor is that it wasn't so much that the hush money payments were made, but when he reimbursed Michael Cohen for him, he didn't classify them properly. He wrote them off as legal bills rather than something that should have been associated with his campaign. On the way into the courthouse today, he said a legal expense is a legal expense, it kind of giving us a preview perhaps of what his defense is going to be in that case. You were a defense attorney. You think that works?
I think I can see why that is going to be his defense. His defense is going to be a version of, hey, I didn't do this to help my campaign. I did it so that Melania wouldn't find out. Oh, and by the way, I never slept with Stormy Daniels anyway. So he'll kind of do double defense with that one. But look, I think what gets lost, and other news agencies are dishing out some of this stuff, there are victims here. The victims are the voters and the people of New York and the United States. Sometimes, you know, the very same people are saying, oh, Donald Trump's being treated unfairly, including Donald Trump, would be totally shocked if, let's say, for instance, somebody paid $130,000 to suppress a story about Hunter Biden when his father was running for president, and then they had evidence that his father was the one who did that. They would be all over that and say this should be prosecuted. Well, this is no different here. This, and from what we've seen reported, the prosecutor has evidence that Donald Trump approved this specifically to prevent Stormy Daniels' story from getting out at a time when he was running for president. Now, he's already gotten some favorable rulings from the judge in this case. He's getting a fair trial. The judge, for instance, suppressed so far evidence of the Access Hollywood tape coming in, which kind of shows Donald Trump's motivation. So Donald Trump is getting a fair trial. And I will say something else, too. This argument about somehow this is engineered by the Biden administration is absurd. There's no evidence of that. And his argument that I could be someplace else campaigning, blah, blah, blah. Well, don't forget that this trial could have happened a year and a half ago. It is Donald Trump and his lawyers seeking to delay that's gotten the trial happening right now rather than months and months and months ago. So Donald Trump really shouldn't be complaining about that. He's the one who created this trial date.
We're spending time with constitutional law expert and attorney Robert McWhirter on this second day of Donald Trump's criminal trial. Robert, while you're with us here in our remaining moments, a lot of folks have questioned the veracity of this trial, suggesting that it's the weakest of the four that Donald Trump could have faced or may still face before the election in November. But what's it going to be like when testimony begins? What's it going to be like when Stormy Daniels is telling her story and that'll be the front page news, or Michael Cohen? Is this going to feel different?
Well, I do agree, by the way, this is the weakest of the four cases. That does not mean that it's not a case that the prosecutor can win. This case will come down to the testimony of two people, Stephanie Clifford, Stormy Daniels, and Michael Cohen. The defense strategy here is to try to attack both of them, especially Michael Cohen. I don't think in my experience, and I've had many, many trials where somebody is a snitch and they testify and then you attack them for their interest in testifying against somebody. The juries are very good at saying, yeah, he's doing that and he's self-interested, but doesn't mean what he's saying is not true. Just because Michael Cohen is saying stuff about his former boss and he's getting a deal for it or has gotten benefit from it, doesn't mean that what he says is not true. I mean, you can be kind of self-interested and still honest. And I also think that in this case, having just seen her, I think Stormy Daniels is going to be a very strong witness against Mr. Trump. And I must say, in this whole sordid affair, at least from what I see publicly, the person that's shown the most integrity and honesty so far has been the sex worker. I mean, she seems to just have a straightforward reason. She says she slept with Donald Trump because she's a sex worker and the check cleared. Well, that's pretty honest. The jury cares about honesty. Other things are not quite as important to them.